What makes Hong Kong business environment attractive for companies looking to set up their regional headquarters?
Hong Kong is one of the key business in Asia Pacific. Hong Kong has a very simple, one of the simplest tax systems globally. We have a free port, but we don't have tariffs, as such.
So what I understand, good government, good access to capital, easy to set up your company within just half a day. Darren, which non-finance sectors such as Web3 digital services or cross-border health insurance are demonstrating strong growth right now from your point of view?
I would say is obviously the Web3 blockchain, the category behind that. That's one that's really starting to move. I mean, Hong Kong in general is focused on technology and innovation right now.
How is Hong Kong positioning itself with GBA, like Greater Bay Area, to attract high-growth cross-border businesses?
Well, what makes, in my opinion, what makes Hong Kong fascinating isn't just its own capabilities with the Greater Bay Area, which is one of the most ambitious regional plans in the world.
Entering Hong Kong market, what is that one local thing that I should be considering as I move on? Hello everyone and welcome to our roundtable, Breaking into Hong Kong, a 2025 opportunity for businesses. I am Bhargavi Rathi, CEO at Digital Go Where, and I'm delighted to moderate this timely and dynamic discussion. As global business leaders recalibrate in the post-COVID and post-realignment era, Hong Kong is once again emerging as a springboard for companies looking to scale across Asia. From its strategic east-west positioning and robust legal system to rising sectoral innovation and market access to both mainland China and Southeast Asia, Hong Kong is more than just a financial hub. It's a launchpad for bold businesses expansions. And today, we are joined by three brilliant experts who brings diverse hands-on experience, perspectives on how to navigate and thrive in the Hong Kong's evolving business landscape. Today we have with us Miguel, Managing Director at Acclaim Hong Kong. Miguel has nearly 2 decades of experience guiding startups and Fortune 500 companies through cross-border market expansions. With roots in both entrepreneurship and policy, he's an expert in corporate services, regional compliance, and foreign investment structuring. Welcome Miguel to the Leadership Circle. We have with us today Darren, founder and MD of HK Initiatives and chair of BrandTech Asia. Darren has led market innovations for global names like Google, Mercedes, and Audi. His work spans immense brand experience, digital storytelling, and non-traditional sectors like Web3 and wellness. Welcome, Darren, to the Leadership Circle. Also, we have with us today Kenneth, Managing Director at MCure Group. Kenneth brings a decade of experience in transaction advisory, cross-border, M&A and structuring investments across Asia Pacific. He has advised Fortune 500 companies, venture capitalists, and strategic investors looking to expand in and through Hong Kong. Welcome, Kent, to the Leadership Circle. Let's start by setting the stage. Kent, from the corporate service advisory standpoint, what makes Hong Kong business environment attractive for companies looking to set up their regional headquarters?
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me to share a little bit of what are some of our insights with regards to Hong Kong. So look forward to sharing a little bit more with fellow panelists here today. All right. So with regards to Hong Kong and set up shop or regional headquarters in Hong Kong, I think there's no denial that Hong Kong is one of the key business in Asia Pacific. And that had been for a long time, and certainly Hong Kong is an important gateway both in and out of the mainland China, and that's, I would say, particularly obviously important in the past 30 40 years where so mainland China has developed exponentially in the recent past. Some of the key attributes, I would say, obviously Hong Kong has a very simple, one of the simplest tax systems globally. We have a free port. We don't really levy. We don't have tariffs. As such, and so couple that with a great logistics sub ecosystem. Trading activities have always been one of our key pillars in Hong Kong, and so that had always been attractive to a lot of trading companies.
Definitely.
In that realm of of businesses, right? And then, of course, we have a wonderful, pack, system where the currency is fixed. Or, you wouldn't be, or one doing a business here will not be bothered with, will have to deal with, currency fluctuations, which is, extremely, sort of useful, I would say, capital free flow, naturally, we all have done or come across, activities, or business with like, mainland China. And naturally, you would face some issues with, foreign exchange controls. And so Hong Kong doesn't really have that, right? So that's a huge plus. We have a very friendly, pro business government, and so I think that even to this day, if you look, Hong Kong is one of the simplest jurisdictions to do business with, right? You want to incorporate business, what it takes half a day, literally, right?
Wow.
Now the only thing that's slowing companies down are really the compliance, which rests upon on folks like us having to clear the necessary checks and balances, right? Rule of law, I think that's a sort of a no-brainer. We have a great legal system, and that continues to play a key or critical role in the development of Hong Kong. Access to capital, yeah, that has been very useful.
So what I understand, good government, good access to capital, good, easy to come in, easy to set up your company within just half a day. So all of these makes Hong Kong a very, very attractive place, correct?
Yeah. I mean, definitely, and I would say Hong Kong, has a lot of these soft issues as well, right? Where or benefits as well, where I was saying, sort of access to capital. We have a great, capital market, Hong Kong Stock Exchange.
Us, yeah.
And we have a huge, pool of alternative, asset managers where we have to start up, sort of ecosystem, and then once it sort of gets to a certain stage, bankers can come in, and then eventually can be listed. Investors can exit their investments, and then we deploy their capital. I mean, that's fundamental to the growth of
Right.
I mean, Hong Kong and China for the past 30, 40 years, right?
Definitely. I mean, I completely agree to all the points that you've been saying. That is that's the key of why Hong Kong is the famous place to set up when you want to look at Asia as a market. So with this, I think I move to the next question, and that next question goes to Miguel. Miguel, you work closely with the investors and regulatory people. What trends are you seeing, which are emerging in the emerging industries? What companies are coming up in Hong Kong nowadays? What is attracting the most foreign investors?
Thank you, Rakabi. I mean, it's a very good question. And well, the first time I came to Hong Kong was 19 years ago. I mean, we were talking earlier about, the time and so on, and everything has changed dramatically. Everything has changed a lot. But now I will say I'm a newbie here. I'm on the panelists. I'm living in Hong Kong only a year and a half. Year and a half, I've seen how the momentum has really shifted, especially in sectors that go beyond, I see these traditional, finance groups. I will say probably I will start with Web3 virtual assets. I would say Hong Kong's regulatory clarity through the VATP license regime has positioned it probably as Asia's more serious destination for crypto firms, their own regulation, not just the speculation. Then we can talk about the green finance with over $80 billion green bonds issued by HDX. ESG is probably now baked into capital markets here and not just corporate mission statements. And then it comes usual suspects, not only from markets like health tech and cross-border finance. It's another hot area. This also helps with the integration with GBA, and cities is opening up opportunities in telehealth, AI diagnosis, and insurance platforms that span borders. And finally, we are seeing real movement in AI, robotics, and smart logistics, and especially with the support of Hong Kong Science Technology and Technology Park and Cyberport. They are providing huge support to companies, startups, focus on automation and supply chain efficiency. Probably I would say those are the main one for me.
Yeah, great insights, especially when we talk about everything. You've talked about healthcare, you talked about AI, and these are the trends. And in fact, you also talked about crypto, and I'll get back to on this question soon to you. But let's move on to Darren. Darren, as someone who has led brands across region, right? How do you see like East meets West kind of positioning of Hong Kong provides a comprehensive edge to businesses working? What are your takes on that?
I mean, it's really, we look at Hong Kong as it's where we say East meets West isn't just a DNA slogan. It's a strategic advantage here because we are a globally connected, culturally fluent, and legally connected base that really mixes. You have China, Asia, Pan-Asia markets that really make it this true international city. And I think that that's what he mentioned earlier. It's a launch pad, for China going one way, as well as us, coming into this. And for me, it's really interesting. It's a great test bed of innovation as well. You're trying to run pilots, product marketing, test fitting, regional adaptation that you would come in and do that. And I think that it's also easy to operate here. It's bilingual, it's fluent in English, Cantonese, Mandarin, really have a basis. You don't feel like you have to be speaking Cantonese to live here, work here, and operate there. And that's where it's a great, thing, and, look at Hong Kong, we go to over 4,000 regional headquarters here. So it's pretty impressive, and that's where I think it's really that ability that says, hey, if you want to test the market, this is a great place to go and scale from as well.
Right. So I think that's the lens that I think a lot of customers would be looking at, that any person, any language is not a barrier when you come to Hong Kong, right? I think that's a great way of positioning Hong Kong. So Miguel, my next question definitely comes back to you again here. You talked about crypto, you talked about other things, other different healthcare and AI. How has the Hong Kong government streamlined company registration and regulatory processes to attract these global investors?
I mean, what are the reasons I found Hong Kong so easy to get operational and also operational, sorry, and it was how frictionless the setup process is, especially compared to other markets in the region. I come from Southeast Asia, where most of the markets are not easy to establish, probably except for Singapore. I want to mention any other country, but yeah, some of those countries really take forever, if ever actually you're able to make it. So Hong Kong is quite the opposite. It's very simple. What Ken mentioned before, to set up a company in Hong Kong is you do it in a day if you want. So
Right. As Kent also said, it's just a 30 and a half a day process.
Exactly. So this is one of the beauties of Hong Kong and one of the probably most shocking factors of Hong Kong. It's easy. You can also have 100% foreign ownership and no local director requirement.
Is it easy for crypto as well? I think I'm just specifically asking this question, and I'm sure it's not in the, the way that we discussed before, but is it easy for crypto companies who are coming up to set up in Hong Kong?
But I think just in follow up on that as well with that, I think, definitely Web3, blockchain, and crypto is that because the Hong Kong's really regulating it as a digital asset hub.
Yes.
And so Hong Kong, as the government's saying this, and they're having a dedicated licensing regime, making it much more attractive to this. And this is kind of a big momentum and push that they're now doing. And over the years, you're going to see it all has to get worked out, but at least we're leading the charge behind that, making it an exciting place.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do agree with Darren. I mean, we ourselves don't do enough, I would say. Yeah, we probably should do more. I mean, and we often sort of simplify things, but there's crypto, right? But there's so many things that are actually adjacent to it. And I have clients where it's Web3, and when you ask more, it's really just simply an investment company investing. It's like any other PE firm that I worked with, in my prior life. But so, I mean, sometimes it's, but yeah, I echo that. I think it's a great initiative. I think we're doing well. We should probably do more, but I think overall, from that perspective, is a key, one of the key pillars as well in terms of how we envision Hong Kong would be, in the next 20 years. It's a great setup, right?
Definitely. I agree to that. So I'll get back again to Miguel. Miguel, what roles do corporate service provider play in helping international firms scale in Hong Kong?
I mean, I've been in corporate services for many years, and I've seen firsthand how overwhelming a new market can be for a new company. our role as corporate service providers is to simplify and de-risk that process. Probably in Hong Kong, I mean, it's again compared to the markets, way different, more straightforward, more transparent. But we, in corporate services, probably what we usually start is with the entity setup and structure. We have clients choose between holding company, operating entity, rep office, depending on the goals. And once that's clear, we handle the full back office. I mean, from the payroll, MP visas, accounting, corporate secretarial, company secretary services. And then we also have for those regional partners, we also provide those cross-border.
So it's end to end, everything that a business needs.
Absolutely, yes. And then what I always have to highlight this because we act as a regulatory watchdog. I mean, we have to make sure that we keep clients updated on compliance changes so they can stay focused on growth. So leave us in all that fun part to us. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So Ken, let's talk, while he's talking about that you guys work as end-to-end people and a watchdog. So let's talk about market entry via acquisitions. What factors should companies consider when choosing between setting up a new entity versus acquiring an existing one in Hong Kong?
I mean, that's a very big question, and one which I have spent 20 years trying to sort of work through that. Right. I would actually just take one step back. Why go to certain country to do business, right? I often say, many countries may have very simple systems, but then there's no opportunities there, right? Whereas if you look back, China, mainland China continues to this day to be not that easy, right? There's still a lot of, and Miguel mentioned a lot of these Southeast Asian countries, they're not easy to do business with, but then they have a great market. And that's why, all the American companies, all the European companies want that market, right? And also there's a huge base of manufacturing capabilities where
Right.
now this is not, you can't even replace. So, but going back to your question in terms of whether, if you're looking into entering into Hong Kong and, whether to sort of start on your own or, acquire something, I think that really has to, I mean, it really has to go back to is company specific, I would say, right? And also industry specific. If you're looking at something where, you want to do it quick and it's easy to acquire, then yeah, by all
I
means,
think
right?
that's very easy, right? If you already have set up similar business, just acquire and kickstart, right?
Yeah. But then, naturally, Miguel may have, more practical experience than I have. I have been involved in helping clients to do the acquisitions, but I haven't really lived through it that much. But obviously, the integration part is hugely important, and so that's a critical factor that needs to be considered over they're managing all these people. But I mean, yeah.
Made that a creative agency now, actually from the US, that's looking to expand in Asia. And that question is, well, should we just take our brand, start from scratch and hire that? And that was part of the discussion. Say, look at it's good to take a base company, look at what they've been doing over the last several years, natural behind that, and the relationships, the cultural understanding, all of these other things. You just can't say, I'm going to move a company and start a company. And this is why you really look at that question as, why am I going to buy this company? And make sure that it's integrated in the right way. And all those values that you get out of it, you really have to check off and say, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
That's a great point. So just going back, some years back, we used to work with a lot of the Japanese trading companies, and the way they do it is they don't acquire, majority, whatever. They acquire, super minority, like 20-30%, and really just to, have a board seat, get some good optics in how these companies run. And then, they can learn from it thereafter, and maybe they can acquire,
That's a very, very nice strategy. Just acquire a little part, invest, learn, and then if it's working, scale it up. I think that's really, really nice insight, and thank you for that. Darren, I think when you've been talking about like acquisitions of the companies, which non-finance sectors such as Web3 digital services or cross-border health insurance are demonstrating strong growth right now from your point of view?
I mean, I think we briefly touched on a couple of them. I put them in three categories. I go, I would say is obviously the Web3 blockchain, the category behind that. That's one that's really starting to move. I mean, Hong Kong in general is focused on technology and innovation right now. And so that's one of the big pushes from the government, as well as the opportunity with the new AI space, China coming out as well to the world. We're in that perfect space. So I think in that space, you're going to see incredible explosive growth, especially around AI. And as we start taking these new technologies as well as part of China, because Hong Kong offers you all the elements that you might not get in China that you're going to be able to deliver here from Hong Kong. Two is the digital services area that, is the e-commerce, moving SaaS, the logistics, B2B platforms, starting to bridge Asia, connect Asia, cross-border payments that we're seeing happen, and a lot of new types of companies and technologies being used. And then I think the third one is interesting is also health insurance, where we're seeing, now China can come into Hong Kong and we can offer health insurance services and products. So that's a big area it's going to be massive growth in health tech, platforms, insurance products, medical tourism, and behind that. And so, we're going to see a big growth for startups. We have over 4,000 startups in Invest Hong Kong last year. I think they probably took about 400 startups that they were helping to support across these spaces.
Yeah. And so we talked about these upcoming technology. What about the non-traditional markets? What about the non-traditional companies?
Well, we call non-traditional, let's call them lifestyle. I think we're expanding our identity beyond finance, and the emerging opportunities we see in Hong Kong are three areas. One is art and culture. China has said Hong Kong is the art and cultural hub of China. And we have the West Kowloon district that has world-class M+ museums, new museums. So it's really kind of Hong Kong's becoming the cultural gateway to that world. So we're seeing art tech, creative education, design, and then all of these areas around art and culture are blowing up. Another big area that we're coming into that we never would have thought of years ago was now with Kai Tak Stadium, has about 50,000 seats, the whole park, the whole thing. We're moving into a sports economy that you're seeing that we're going to start having incredible sports tourism, retail, sport tech, athlete development. So these are interesting areas, life, wellness behind that you say, all because we're pushing into this area. You're going to see incredible spin-offs of companies and opportunities that open up. And then the third category that's really kind of is about live events, mega events. We want to be the event capital of Asia. We say we're doing 90 mega events over the next several months.
So as soon as you say the event capital, I see Miguel and Ken nodding their heads. So could you also add on some insights? What do you think, which industries, according to you, are doing a lot of registrations or acquiring companies?
No, sorry, and I was just noting because when we mentioned about events and so on, I was just thinking just a few weeks ago. I mean, we had the Rugby Sevens, which I love. Okay, so it was an amazing event. And that week we also had the Central, Art Basel, multiple events within a week. I mean, that week, I think not only me, I'm sure Darren, Ken, everyone was super busy, literally non-stop. I mean, it was on a Friday. I went to Art Basel in the morning. I had meetings in the morning, Art Basel in the afternoon, and to the Rugby Sevens in the evening. So it was non-stop. And that's the beauty of Hong Kong. And when people ask me, hey, Miguel, do you like Hong Kong? Well, I love Hong Kong. And this is one of the reasons why.
I think it's just really adding a lot more, character to the city. And before it was, I mean, to me, it's still critical, right? The finance, it's all important, the banking and all that. But then, we are really widening, some our palette, right? And that's important for the growth of the city.
Right. Great. So I do see a lot of things.
I'm going to say Singapore, the difference. We just had this conversation with so many people like, oh, go to Singapore. It's that battle between Hong Kong and Singapore. And I go, I think from Singapore perspective, it feels very gentrified. Whereas Hong Kong really is this international city that mixes everything. From Art Basel to this, to that. We had Live Golf that weekend, which was one of the biggest events, attracting 15,000 people as well. And so there's something for everybody in Hong Kong. Mountains, oceans, we have an incredible, only maybe 10% of the nature area that is developed in Hong Kong. And that makes it a really kind of a special place to live.
Looks like all three of you are loving Hong Kong and you want people to come to Hong Kong. So that's
I think, again, I used to live, for so many years in Southeast Asia. I used to go to Singapore almost every other week. I sort of live on and off there. And I love Singapore, but again, Hong Kong for me is in a different level. Okay, I mean, I go hiking almost every week. I mean, in Singapore, unless you go to, I don't know, I mean, how do you call it, Fort Canning?
Yeah, Fort Canning. Yes.
Now
Someone who stayed in Singapore, I know how it is in Singapore. So
it's nothing. Okay, so I mean, and there are so many places in Hong Kong to go. I mean, every week I'm trying to visit a new place, and Singapore, well, it's limited.
okay, let's
I
not
love
take it there.
Singapore, but well, this is not about Singapore, it's about Hong Kong.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. That also gets me to the next question, which says about the basic problem that most of the entrepreneurs face while coming is hiring. So what are your takes there? And I'll start with you. What are your takes about the talent? What makes Hong Kong flexible hiring process? What is it for people out here? Like when I start up a company, what will be the process to hiring? Is it easy? Is it difficult? What it is?
I think it's two parts for that question. The talent, what's the quality of the talent? And then the other part is how easy it's to work with them. I think we'll start with the second one. Hong Kong's one of the most flexible, employer-friendly cities and environments in Asia. You know, we have at-will employment. So it's not like you have to make commitments for years on end. We have freelancer contractor availability. You know, in working in China and other ones, it's a lot of complications, a lot of steps you have to go through to be able to do this. Here, it's completely open to that, you know. So it's really gives us an incredible easy way to deal with it. You look at Europe, it's very in France, Germany, you know, you have an employee, it's not easy to do that. So if you're having a rough time, you have to put out packages that are make it very costly for the business. Whereas here, it's much more favorable to the employer, maybe not to the employee, but it makes it agile, it scales quickly. So you can come in, you can scale up or down quickly as the market shows. And then I think in talent in general, there's this, it's, you know, in some areas we're looking for talent, right? In new technology, in new spaces, and we're trying to attract new talent from the world to come here. But I think we've got an incredible pool from a mix of interesting people that connect together that sit
Supports. Right.
well-rounded across a lot of industries. Can we be
I also want to put this question in front of Ken. Ken, I am sure you are into payrolls and helping, companies. How do you see this, like the hiring process? And you have been there in this market for the longest.
Yeah, I fully echo. And I particularly want to stress out the point about, so it's easy to scale up, but also down, right? Because as potential prospects looking into whether to enter into a certain market, it's okay, it's wonderful to scale up, but then what happens if I want to leave, right?
Right.
And I think a lot of the times that is forgotten or not really considered, but that's fundamental to making that decision. And I think in Hong Kong it is easy to sort of go up and scale down as well, both from a human capital perspective as well as liquidating and winding up and then just packing up and leaving. If you want to do that in sort of in the mainland, I mean, it's a different system. It's not going to enjoy that flexibility, but Hong Kong does have that.
Okay.
So definitely friendly.
That's really easy for companies to come up, scale. If the product is not working, they can also scale down.
And it's also easy to attract the talents here because we have a low tax system. We're not taking. I mean, mainland has what 20, 30, 40% of social insurance taxes that come off the employer and the employee.
Also, I think the quality of talent is very high when it comes to Singapore and Hong Kong kind of regions because you get the cream crowd coming into these. Am I correct?
Yes. It continues to be.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
I mean, look at the panel we have today.
some amazing people out here. So, Miguel, let's also talk about pitfalls. Like, what are the most common mistakes you see businesses when expanding into Hong Kong? I see everything good. I hear you all and I see that everything is so easy. But I'm sure there might be some difficulties that these businesses might be facing. Can you highlight few for the audience?
Sure, I can say with you, what I've seen a few recurring mistakes that are easy to avoid. I mean, with the right guidance from. Probably the first one is thinking of Hong Kong as just a China entry point. I mean, while it
Right.
does play that role, I mean, Hong Kong has a unique identity. Hong Kong is international, rule of law based with its own fast-paced business culture. It's completely different to China. So again, it's something that, again, probably people forget. Another big mistake that I also see is delaying the licensing. Especially in finance, we talked before about Web3, fund services, and regulated industry. Licensing in Hong Kong is easy. I would say it's transparent. Still takes time, but too many firms wait until the last minute, and then is when they have some issues. And then there's underestimating localization. And yes, English is widely used, but relationships, messaging, branding, and even pricing strategies need to resonate with local norms. What works in New York or Singapore may not work here.
Yeah.
Another point that I also see is probably neglecting your people infrastructure. Companies often overlook the nuances of employment contracts, the mandatory provident fund contributions, even visa sponsorships, and even cultural expectations around team management. Probably also that I'm thinking of is underutilizing the ecosystem support. Many companies, they don't realize that they can tap into business chambers, innovation hubs, sector-specific associations that can accelerate the local traction and partnerships. This is, again, another one. And probably the last one that I'm thinking, again, Hong Kong, I think we all know here, it's not the cheapest place in the world, okay? But I think also what I see is many companies, they are overly cost-focused at the start. Some firms, they cut corners on advisors or legal reviews during setup. And this may save some money at the beginning, but it creates expensive cleanups later on. So again, I see this almost on daily basis.
Right.
I don't know if the other panelists, I'm sure they also have more.
Yeah, I was just thinking to move the question to Kenneth also and Darren also.
For me, it's just one particular point that I want to sort of add to the bag is really, people have still a lot of the times they have this false impression of, KYC is not that, I can send whatever and, you guys can manage. And then sort of the banking part or the banking element, I think a lot of the times they still think that it's very easy to open bank accounts or, relationships can really help a lot. And, unfortunately, I would say most of the time it's not that, impactful because you're just incorporating one entity and you are not really something, with a high profile where maybe there's, a slight chance that you can open a account quicker, right? That's this false impression. Sarah, or maybe
Darren, probably you can add your point as well. Okay, we're talking about the most common mistakes that businesses make when they expand into Hong Kong.
I think that it's that we are an international city, but yet we're made up of a lot of components, right? And localization, I think this was an interesting one we were going to talk about, was how critical localization was in understanding the culture. You've got Cantonese culture, Hong Kong traditional group. You have, a lot of the Chinese mainland coming in here and living here as well. You've got international, you've got Pan-Asia. So you have kind of all these different categories, and you have to really understand from the lifestyle, from the living perspective, what they need, when you say know your customer, a lot of these companies really, we just come in, we offer the product. I think you got to reverse it. This is marketing, back to the marketing and branding, that they think, what works in Germany, we can bring in a German Mercedes. No, you got to understand what their lifestyle, why they're using it, what luxury means to them now, on the ground, and it's changing. This is a big part. We've been through a lot of ups and downs over the last 15 years I've been here. And I think it's just don't expect it, but that's why I love having companies that are working in the market, because they have the relationships, the understanding, and really on the ground experience, because that's the most important thing. You got to get out. You can't read about it. You can't do this. We have all these exchanges, commerce, where you got to go out and meet people and see what's really happening on the ground.
Right. So thank you for all of your insights on that question. Ken, I think my next few questions are directly going to go to you because it is more about deep diving into it. I would like to understand let's deep dive into merger acquisition dimensions. What are some key considerations for business evaluating M&A opportunities in Hong Kong? And at the same time, if you could just highlight on foreign investors ensuring a smooth KYC due diligence coming up?
I think at the end of the day, when you're looking at a business, most of the time you're looking at a business where, it's going to generate profits, cash flows going forward, right? And so whether, one can actually ascertain, relatively, accurately that the ability to generate, those cash flows will be, critical to your evaluation, right? I think that's really one of the biggest, driver of the deals, driver for the valuation, right? If you're not going to be able to earn that much, then that's you're not going to be able to ask for that much, right? And so that is always a key, a very key aspect of what we do in due diligence. Yeah, when we're looking at companies, obviously there are many other aspects, the legal compliance aspects. But at least from my perspective, when you're acquiring a company, you're really acquiring that business where it's going to generate something in return, right? So that in itself is going to be, I would say, it's probably the same for anywhere you go. It doesn't matter whether it's Hong Kong, Singapore, Indonesia, what have you. But of course, in a different, depending on the jurisdiction, there's going to be other attributes, characteristics that you need to consider. Yeah, Hong Kong is, as we have all said, is a free, everything's so easy, and so I think you would have a lot less regulatory, you know.
So in that case, what about the tax planning factors should companies assess before, before they expand?
Yeah, I wouldn't say too much with that, but I would say it's definitely important. That I would say, and it's always recommended that anytime you do a deal, you need to sort of hire the right tax advisors and do the right thing before you make the before you structure the deal and go through it, right?
Right.
Yeah, yeah, but many because some there are many clients who have this false expectation, and so we see that a lot, right? They knock on our door, call, and then said, okay, we just do this and try to save some fees. But I would say it's a mistake for sure, right? You always should get proper legal tax
Advisory. Right.
right.
So you go.
And once you get that, you can always sue them, right?
Right. So definitely, I mean that 17% tax in Singapore and 16.5% tax in terms of corporates in Hong Kong. Am I right? Right.
Yeah.
So there's
No
very little
GST in Hong
difference.
Kong. Sorry, no GST in Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah, no capital gains. I mean, it's just simple.
Yeah. So yeah. Miguel, you want to add on something as well?
No, I mean, Ken already mentioned everything, and I fully agree with him.
So my question next comes to you. How is Hong Kong positioning itself with GBA, like Greater Bay Area, to attract high growth cross border businesses?
Well, what makes, in my opinion, what makes Hong Kong fascinating isn't just its own capabilities. I mean, it's how it fits into the Greater Bay Area, into the GBA, which is one of the most ambitious regional plans in the world. I mean, for those who don't know, I mean, let's just start with the scope. What is GBA? And GBA includes 11 cities like Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, Macau, and so on, with a combined population of around 87 million people and a GDP over 2 trillion. US dollars. This is fascinating just to get started. And then in this setup, Hong Kong is the headquarter city, is presented for the legal, financial, IP management, while other cities like Shenzhen drive the innovation and manufacture. What gives Hong Kong a huge edge is the one country, two systems model. We have a common law system, global capital access. We just mentioned about the low taxes, 16.5 profit tax, no capital gains, no capital gain tax, and bilingual talent. Okay, this is all add up. Then infrastructure and policies are closing the loop. Like, for example, the high-speed trains, the Hong Kong to Macau bridge, new visa programs that we are all enjoying recently are making this even easier for us to do cross-border work. We have examples of some companies, like, for example, DJI, Tencent. They keep strategic operations in Hong Kong and to manage the international legal and funding frameworks, but while they are scaling up out of Shenzhen. This is probably two of the best examples that we see lately. So probably I would suggest that.
Okay. Great. I think I missed on one question, and I want to, finish this with this last question. Darren, that question I missed is for you. When businesses come to Hong Kong, right, when they want to set up this, they want to talk about the local marketing, pricing, consumer behavior, partnerships. So when entering Hong Kong market, what is that one local thing that I should be considering as I move on?
Well, it's a good question. I think it comes back to really understanding your business and the customers that you're trying to go after, and making sure that what you're offering is what's needed. I mean, I think that's part of this big mistake is they step in going, oh, well, we have this great, we have a China, let's take a big coffee chain. We can drop it in Hong Kong and it works. Well, it's a lot. It's still not. It's about understanding the market, the different categories of the market, the demographics, how you're going to reach them, and have a marketing plan and branding plan, and all of these things have to be put well into it. Now, the challenge is we're you're 7.5 million, but I think that's part of what we just talked about, connected with the GBA, connected with a lot of other stuff. We can expand behind that. But I mean, it's and also connecting with the local experts like we've been talking about here. I think that's a big component of it, that you start to say, hey, and new companies are popping up all the time. That's the problem. They don't have enough runway to get them going to really, tap that market, because there's so much social. This, how are you going to reach them, right? And so you've got to do it great. You've got to understand what their need is and really push in their way that's something that they need, and then be able to amplify it.
Right, right. So I think I learned a lot today. I learned so much, and from each one of you, you had great insights about why a business should come to Hong Kong, how they can expand from Hong Kong to the rest of the Asia, and an incredible insights on how new industries are tapping the market. What are the opportunities? And I think what I'll take is I'll not get bored, because there's a lot of hiking, there's a lot of water sports, there's a lot of activities that as a business, as an entrepreneur also, I can enjoy while I'm growing my company there. So I think thank you so much, Ken, Miguel, Darren, for your great insights on the entire Hong Kong chapter. I'm sure the audience are going to love and get your more insights on the same. So thank you once again for joining us today. I think I'm little extended by 15 minutes, but I think it's very important to cover each part of this topic, so it becomes very useful for the entrepreneurs out there watching this episode. So thank you. Thank you, Kenneth, Miguel, and Darren, for an incredible conversation and being a part of this roundtable. We had powerful insights across strategy sectors, risk, and realities, from merger and acquisitions to digital growth, to localization and initiatives that government is taking. To our audience, if you're exploring a Hong Kong for expansion, this panel just gave you a roadmap. Like it and share it with someone who may need it. Until next time, stay bold, stay global.